Hi, on July here. I wanted to knock out a video where I do an instructional video on my instructional video. I think it's going to be fun. I've never done this, but I think it will be an interesting thing for coaches to evaluate how somebody coaches and what makes good coaching, in my opinion. Okay, so this is a video I did recently. I found this on one of the discs. I shot it maybe a year or two ago on teaching some kids on how to jump serve. I met these kids in the morning early. I literally, when I shot this video, I'd known them for about half an hour, 45 minutes. But there's some pretty powerful instruction in here that I think you'll find real valuable. So let's watch and I'll start to point out things that I'm doing.
Worst thing you can do in men's volleyball. What's the second worst thing?
Okay, so the very first thing I started with was I'd already teaching them how to do a standing float serve. And anytime we start with serving, we want to start off with the 4 worst things you can do in men's volleyball. This was a study conducted by USA Volleyball in 2004 by a guy named Dr. Gil Fullingham. And in it, he said basically the worst thing you can do in men's volleyball is miss your serve. Second worst thing is a lollipop serve, which is basically a 3 or 4 point pass. And then the third worst thing is an almost perfect pass, which is a semi-lollipop. So I've already taught them this, so you can see all the kids. The very first thing before I get into the instruction is, okay, why are we focused on jump serving and why do we want to do this? Because we don't want to just make our serves. We want to make our serves tough and we want to make them in.
I want you guys to become incredible servers where we serve it tough and we serve it in, yes? Yes.
Okay, the next thing you'll notice is notice how I engage them. Early on in the game or in the practice, the first thing I talk about is the language of volleyball. And you can see how I don't just talk it, I make them repeat it. So everything is being repeated because it's another way of learning. So you'll see how much I have them repeat stuff. Okay, now all the stuff I've shared with them, you'll be blown away, but I've only told them this once or maybe twice. Once with float serving, and then maybe one other time so far. But you can see how much they're learning and how much transfer is happening because of the teaching method. Also, notice what I did there. Yes, yes. So I make them say yes to make sure I get full engagement.
Okay, so let's look. Now, our jump serve is a 4-step approach. How many steps?
Notice the languaging. Notice the open probes. How many steps? Who, what, why, when, oh, so, meaning, and how. Okay, so I asked an open probe to engage them. Okay.
First step is our timing step.
Notice how I'm getting them talking, so timing.
Our second step is our direction. Our third and fourth step is our step close.
So I hadn't taught them on the step close, okay, on that languaging.
Okay, you guys with me? We toss the ball on our right step. Which step? Right. Our arm is straight.
Notice the very specific languaging. Okay, so some of the languaging that we like to use is arm is straight. Okay, no moving parts. You know, this goes back to something I picked up from Alan Knipe, USA Olympic men's coach 2012. He says the language of volleyball is your culture. Speak your language often, know your language. And you can see I'm teaching them now a very basic new language. So for example, if I tell them arm is straight, every single player on that team knows arm is straight. So when they're jump serving, their arm is straight. I don't have to go through it. No moving parts. Don't do a bunch of extra actions on your arm swing when tossing the ball. Keep your arm straight, no moving parts. Okay.
Moving parts. Okay. Notice I start my arm low. Less is more. If I go down and up, that's more movement. I want to only go up. Less is more. I toss the ball in front of which shoulder? Hitting shoulder. So I toss the ball in front of my hitting shoulder. Which foot do I toss on? First step right, then it's my direction step left, right, left. One of the important things I want you to consider is on your final 2 steps, your final right step, having your leg at a 45-degree angle so you can generate hip torque. Open up. You guys with me? Yes.
Okay, so notice in terms of the instruction, there's multiple parts going through it. So I'm trying to teach them. Now, one of the things I believe is that if you teach kids right once or twice, you generally don't have to teach them it ever again. So what's amazing is I teach, and we do this in our camps when we're teaching kids, and I teach all the coaches that we work with how to do this. But you can basically teach a kid correctly once or twice, And then they basically understand the verbal cues that you're using from now to eternity, because they understand your language, and that language and that teaching technique becomes part of our culture. Okay, also notice how much visual instruction there is going on with this. So I'm teaching them on multiple levels. Okay, so there's vision, hearing, okay, all going on at the same time. Plus I'm having them speak to repeat it back so that they remember it.
See, a lot of you guys are going in like this, and you don't have power. I want you guys here and generating power. You then want to turn on the axis. Notice I'm turning on the axis. How do I generate my power? Hips. Your biggest thing for power is your hips. On your serve, it's not about arm, it's about hips. The reason it's not about arm is I want to leave my arm there and let this just do direction. You guys with me? You look.
Now notice again, I'm trying to play into the egos a little bit. What do you think boys want to do? They want to hit the ball hard. So again, I'm working on that. But again, one of the biggest problems that you have is players are trying to force the ball versus driving the ball with their hips for power. So it's a common theme and common lesson that we're always talking about. Spiking, serving, everything is hips for power. Shot a great video on that with that pass back. It's a great tool for you working and improving hips for power. I'll try and maybe reference that in this video.
March and Ken Steffers, when they played back in the day, they used to just do this. So they could get the serve in with lots of spin, and they'd leave it there. You see that?
Now notice also what I'm doing is I'm doing a lot of visual references. Notice motor learning studies have shown that players best remember things in the form, motor patterns in the form of visual imagery. So some of the things I'm trying to do is set up some visual imagery so that they can understand how to do this. Okay. Notice how also I try to keep that visual imagery pretty simple there. I didn't try and hammer it. I try to just show them some of the basics of that visual imagery.
If you're trying to force it with your arm, what are you going to do? You're going to drop it into the net. So
also notice when I spoke about that, I brought in references from experts. So Koch Karai, Ken Steffers. If you actually look back at the Olympics in Atlanta, that's how they serve. They did a two-step approach pretty much with this high toss. And I think for jump serving with the big court and the way the ball spins, it's easy to teach kids how to get a jump serve in if you leave it and do that type of technique.
I want hips for power and body. Question. You need to see a few more? Yeah. What's the best way to learn? Visually.
So again, now notice what I just did there. So I'm not just telling them and doing it, I'm also teaching them how to become better learners. So one of the things I'm always doing is I'm telling the kids the process of learning. So things like state-dependent memory, the best way pick up motor learning patterns is by visually seeing them. Talking about it, things such as that. I'm constantly reinforcing what I'm learning because my number one goal is to teach them to become better learners. Once I'm not there, I want them to understand the process of learning so they can go do this by themselves.
Arm is straight, less is more. Toss in front of my right shoulder. Toss and chase. You guys with me?
Okay, notice the languaging. Toss and chase, flip and rip. I love those two, especially as you finish.
1 second. Watch a few more. Toss and chase. Yes? Everyone else wants to show you. Who's going to be a jump serve? Steven, that's it, buddy.
Okay, now why did I change and bring in one of the players? Because again, going back to the visual imagery, I want the players to see another player doing that. One of the things I sometimes do is I teach jump float surf, for example, in our camps, and our players really sometimes struggle watching me do it because of my size and proportionality. Okay, I'm a guy versus a girl doing it. Same thing with these boys. So what I did was I basically brought in a girl, a player that's a similar size to go and do this. Now this is a very good proven technique. Koch did this when they won the World Championships. A month and a half before the World Championships, basically they were one of the worst teams in terms of serving. So he basically found video of all the best servers in the world, and basically what he did was his best players each took a player that they liked their serve of somebody else, and they basically watched the video of that other serve and they repeated that video and they picked up their serving. Now doing this, literally Koch's team went from one of the worst serving teams to one of the best serving teams in the world in 3 weeks to a month, I believe. And they won the World Championships, the first gold medal by women's Olympic team. I mean, women's team in ever where they've won the gold for the World Championships or Olympics. It was a big move, and it was all about serving and the visual learning. So now, as you can see, I've done the same thing, but I've switched it over to this player to now do it so that the other players can pick it up.
Challenge versus threat.
Okay, we did a video earlier on this notion of challenge versus threat, so the kids are having a little bit of fun. It's a great video if you can watch it.
Challenge mode. Okay, what did I not like about Steven's toss?
Notice the open pro question, how I'm engaging them, because I want to teach them to be able to watch another player and learn.
I wasn't ready. Give me the ball. You did a double move. Let's change this right now. Yeah, change it. Okay, so Steven, you're going to start with your arm low. Yeah. Okay. Now try. Much better toss. Yeah.
Now that's what's great too, is you can literally show the kids how fast you can improve it. And notice their excitement. They're like, wow, that worked.
His toss was right because he didn't go up, down, up. He just started low. It was one move and it was a perfect toss.
And notice they had that visual imagery right away and they saw it. Plus we used all our visual cues and language of volleyball and we fixed it. Pretty awesome stuff.
The other thing is, guys, spin matters. How much spin can you generate? Generate the spin. You guys with me? Yeah. You guys are looking at the great players. They're doing crazy spin like this. Okay? The other thing is that I've learned is to really jump serve great when you really start cracking the ball. You don't hit the ball over the top.
Okay, this is another video I did on spiking. You know, when I was at UCLA, we used to spike the ball very hard. But again, kids want to spike, so I'm talking about spiking and hitting hard, getting them engaged. Remember, I've just met these kids less than, 40 minutes ago. So I'm really still building a connection with them. And what a better way than to talk about hitting a volleyball. If you ever meet boys, all they want to do is hit balls. So it's like, it's a great way to connect.
Hit the ball on the side. You can actually make the ball drop more by hitting it on the side than hitting it on the top. Really, I'm serious. So when we actually start to hit on the side, you have more control. I'll teach you when you're spiking, hitting the ball on the side versus hitting it flat. You have more head space on the ball. You guys see my video on this? Got 500,000 views. Why don't you guys watch it?
Again, I was just playing with them, having a little fun, but again, also to establish some credibility. So, you know, hey, I'm not some idiot talking about this. Listen to me.
Okay, question. Okay, go.
Okay, it's fun. I hope that's helpful for you coaches out there. You know, I think you got to be that disciplined when you're coaching. You know, great coaches, that's what they're about. There's a lot going on. There's a lot in terms of, you know, what I like to call guided discovery. So I'm not just telling them everything. There is some level of guided discovery, even in that process where I'm teaching them and there's heavy instruction. You'll notice the open pro questions. You'll notice the visual imagery in terms of how I'm teaching them. You'll notice the fun level and the pace. You'll notice the language. You'll notice the communication. Okay, I think if you can do that, you build the right kind of culture at your program and you can have some great things happen. Also, you know, you can do this and players learn very, very quickly. You know, we work with coaches and they're astounded that, you know, we can basically teach the kids 80% of what they need to know in like a 4-day camp. And, you know, this is how you can see why. Okay, see more videos, go to Volleyball 101. Thanks for your time. And please like the video if you see this on YouTube below. Cheers.